Good day, everyone. Michael Murphy here with the Murphy team at Long & Foster Real Estate in Westchester and Downingtown. Thought it'd be a good time to provide a quick update regarding the real estate situation in Chester County. Overall, very exciting time to be in real estate after the pause that took place in real estate earlier this year. So we're happy to be back at it and happy to share this information with you, which is very encouraging. This first slide, this is our team. This is the Murphy team. Many of you know my wife, Susan, who's been in the business now for over 17 years. Our daughters, Kelly and Lisa, and our good friend and colleague and outstanding real estate agent, Renee Bornstadt, are part of our team. We're also part of a larger group called the McKee Cabasco Group. And with our affiliation with them, really, we can handle anyone's needs regarding real estate in all of southern or southeastern Pennsylvania into Philadelphia and the entire state of Delaware, just as an FYI. So I thought I'd share a couple of slides with you today, and here are our topics. We're going to talk about the current Chester County real estate situation with regards to inventory, still very, very low. We're going to talk about mortgage rates, still not only very low still, but historically low. We're going to talk a little bit about demand, and we'll talk about pricing, which, obviously is always a key question from everyone. What's going on with pricing in general, and more specifically, what's going on with my home and my property. And then we'll review at the end sort of what we hear is the common top 5 questions that we get from sellers in particular. Some of you have seen this slide before if you've watched our videos, but I think this is really good. This establishes the baseline for how we define inventory in the real estate market, which is months of supply. And that definition is down below on this slide, so I won't read it to you, but it's really, really simple. Basically, just as it says, how many months would it take to sell the current inventory based on the current demand? So the way we look at this in real estate is anything with less than 6 months of inventory is considered a seller's market. Anything 6 to 7 months is a neutral market. Anything greater than 7 months of supply is generally considered to be a buyer's market. So that's real simple, and I ask you to keep that in mind as we get into the data regarding Chester County. So let's take a quick look. And in this case, I used the Chester County data with a price range from $250,000 to $650,000. Now, for clarity, we do business in all markets, prices below that and prices above that. But the reason I picked this is sort of the core market, if you will. This represents about 70% of the sales in all of Chester County in this price range. So I thought this was a good proxy, number one. Number two, at the lower price end and then at the upper price end, those are different markets than what I'm about to describe to you. So, for example, especially in the higher priced homes in the luxury market, that's more of a buyer's market than a seller market. So let's just focus in on this, what we'll call the core market here between $250,000 and $650,000. So in July, the data tells us there were only 2.8 months of supply. So you'll remember back to the prior slide, this is a very low inventory market. In fact, in the last couple of months, homes sold on average of 43 days. Which is pretty quick. And if you look at the data, which I do, and you start to peel back the onion, you'll find many, many, many homes sold in 5 days or less. This next statement is really astounding. In the second quarter of 2020, this year, home prices in Chester County were up 6.4% from 2019. So home values continue to appreciate. And again, that's reflective, of course, of the very low inventory situation, because housing's just like any other product. Pricing at the end of the day is always driven by supply and demand. And right now, the demand is exceeding the supply in this price range. So the summary is, it definitely remains a seller's market in this price range in Chester County. It's probably the best time to sell a house that it's been in 14 or 15 years. So we'll go to the next slide, and this talks a little about mortgage rates, which is certainly having an influence on the demand side for housing. We are at really a historical 50-year low in terms of rates. My comment in here is that interest rates are around 3%. The truth is, depending on your credit and the type of loan you can get a loan below 3%, which is astounding. Sue and I bought our first home back in the 80s. You can see the chart. I forget what our actual rate was, but I think it was 12 or 14%. And when we bought subsequent homes after that, when mortgage rates were only 8%, we thought we were getting a great deal. But man, it's just a phenomenal time as as a buyer in terms of low mortgage rates. And that impacts the purchasing power. I realize this slide looks a little bit busy, but it's actually very simple. So what this is showing is, as an example, if a buyer was looking at a home at a 3.75 interest rate and their budget, if you will, was around $2,000 a month or just a little bit more for a home, you can see they could have afforded to purchase a $450,000 home. However, with rates now, below 3% for some people, that same buyer can purchase a $500,000 home and have basically the same mortgage and principal payment, or interest and principal payment, pardon me. So your purchasing power is increased in that example by 10% without having any additional income or any additional funds. It's a phenomenal time, in summary, to buy a house from an interest rate perspective. A bigger picture with regards to the outlook for housing values is very, very positive. Here we've cited, some expert external economists and bank sources with their predictions for the future. Again, I'm not going to read the slide to you. You can see it, but in spite of what's going on with the current health-driven economic crisis, the outlook for housing is still, really, really positive in terms of a future investment, and which historically it always has been. So it's still a great time to buy a house and a great time to sell a house. So we'll wrap up here. I could probably come up with top 20 list of questions that we get, but boil it down to the top 5 so that we don't bore you and we keep this video short enough for people to watch. So first one, the most common one is, what's my home worth? Well, whatever your home is worth today is more than it was worth last year, the year before, assuming, of course, all the key questions, which start with location and condition, are appropriate in terms of the value of your home. But housing is clearly worth more today. You saw the data from the earlier slide, up over 6% from a year ago. The value of a home is really dependent on a lot of factors, and that's why it's impossible to price a home without seeing it. So if you are interested in what your home's actually worth today, even if you're not thinking about selling, just reach out to us. No obligation. We'd be happy to stop by, take a look at your home, and help you figure out the value of that. When we do have engaged in those questions, a very common question is, hey, I've made improvements to my home, whether it's a basement, kitchen, bathroom, or whatever. Am I going to get the return on my investment for that? And really, it depends on what you've invested in terms of what your return's going to be. So we actually refer people to, there's a lot of good sites out there about the cost versus value. So if you spent $15,000, $20,000 upgrading your kitchen, what's the return on that? So we can point you to those sites, and some returns are better than others. With a kitchen or a bathroom upgrade, generally you can't go wrong. An in-ground swimming pool, that's a different level of investment. If you're thinking about putting an in-ground swimming pool in, which a lot of people are right now related to the health situation, put that in with the idea that your return is based on your enjoyment of the pool and not the financial return someday when you go to sell the house. And happy to talk to you about that in detail as well. We often get this next one. Hey, Zillow, I looked at Zillow and it says the value of my house is X. That's pretty accurate, right? Hey, Zillow is a fine company, but the answer is no, that's not accurate. And the reason is, as I mentioned before, you have to be physically inside of a home in order to accurately price it. And of course, Zillow is not doing that. They're just using mathematical equations and formulas to see what sold around your home to figure out what the value of your home might be. In fact, I heard someone put it well. They said that Zillow values are plus or minus 20%, 50% of the time. That's not to hammer Zillow. Sometimes by luck they get it right, but don't use Zillow to guide you with the value of your home. In this strong market, with inventory being so low, a lot of sellers will say to us, well, okay, we've talked about what the market value of my home is, but why don't we just list it above market value just to see what happens? Normally you'd expect a real estate agent to say, oh, you never, ever want to do that. But that's not true. We often engage in that conversation. It depends on a lot of factors. First of all, it depends more upon the people selling the house than it does the house themselves. And what I mean by that is, if you're selling a house, what's your timeline to move? Are you under a tight timeline? What's your risk tolerance to sit on the marketplace perhaps longer than you would want to? So there's a lot of things that go into that, but for the right house in the right condition, it's possible to list above market. Now, again, it depends how high we're talking about. Are we talking about 2 or 3% above actual, market value? Or are you trying to talk about 10% above market value? So we always engage in those conversations, and we remind all of our sellers that a house has to be sold 3 times. The first time is you get an agreement of sale that's signed off. The second time typically is through the inspection process, where the buyer goes through the inspection process, and you most often end up in the next level of negotiation regarding the inspections. The third time is with the appraisal value. Even if a buyer pays cash for your home, in all likelihood, they're going to have it appraised. So keep in mind, if you talk about selling a home above market value, at the end of the day, it's still going to have to appraise, or we're going to be into the last level of negotiation. So those are the 3 steps: agreement of sale, inspection, appraisal. Last question is, we're getting this a lot as well. Hey, should we proactively inspect our house, or just let the buyers pay for it and let the buyers do it, which is traditional? The answer to that, again, it depends. It depends on the condition of the house, the age of the house, but really at the end of the day, it depends on you, the seller. I mean, again, what's your timeline to sell? If you're under a tight timeline to sell, you probably want to proactively get an inspection yourself and make the repairs ahead of time, so you don't end up in delay. Or worse is you end up with a deal falling through over inspection items. Not a high percent, but a percent of the deals do fall through after they're signed, and most often the cause of that is because of inspection issues. So the answer to the first part about a general house inspection is it depends, and we'll be happy to talk you through that if you're thinking about selling. The next question, though, in our mind is different. What about the exterior of our home? It's made from stucco, and a fair amount of the homes here in Chester County are made from stucco. Should we have it pre-inspected? Our answer to that, and again, we're talking about a home made from stucco, say in the late 90s, early 2000s. We're not talking about a concrete home that's covered in stucco, built some time ago. Our answer to that is always yes. You have to know as a seller if you have any issues with regards to stucco. And by the way, we're not here to alarm anyone about it. We're just here to educate people. We don't want to alarm you about stucco. For example, Sue and I have a Toll Brothers 4-sided stucco home with no problem whatsoever. So they don't all have problems. But as a seller, you need to know that up front before you go on the market. We're actually finding a lot of agents and their buyers won't even come to see a stucco home if it hasn't been proactively inspected, because they don't want to deal with any issues after the fact. So again, we're happy to go through this in more detail. If you have any questions, of course, reach out to my wife, Susan, myself, or anyone on our team. Thanks, as always, for watching our videos. We really appreciate your support of the Murphy team at Long & Foster Real Estate. And please contact us if there's anything that we can do. Thanks, take care, and hope you and your families are all healthy.